I mean, we're definitely in like a boom of dance music again. Like, you know, we kind of had a dip after the last big boom in the, you know, the early 2010s, late 2000s. We had that huge boom. We're basically back in that again. I don't know if we're in the start, in the middle, where we are. I don't think we're anywhere near the peak, but dance music is having a huge resurgence. The major difference, I'd say for sure, is that 10 years ago, the DJs were the conduit of a vibe.
Okay.
Right? Whereas now the DJ is the vibe. Back in the day, you could be a killer on the decks and just stand behind your laptop and crush it.
And work.
Maybe not even, you know, a lot of DJs would just like use their peripherals to look at the crowd and they're just focused on their laptop with their decks, as opposed to now, like that's almost dead. Even if you're crushing it, that's not enough anymore.
What's your take on how having a laptop versus not having a laptop plays a part in this?
People have been so conditioned now to see big DJ shows, anything with a big, fun, huge DJ, there's no laptop in sight. So naturally, that's something that kind of has sort of seeped into the culture of like an average club goer, that a dope DJ doesn't have a laptop.
We are jumping into another Rock Talk conversation today with DJ Emkay from Miami, Rockwell Talent. And today's gonna be an open conversation on some industry topics, some DJ topics, some agency topics, and a few topics I'm sure we'll discuss along the way. So I wanna start off with a little minimal intro. DJ Emkay, born and raised Miami.
I was actually born in Houston, Texas.
No way.
But I didn't really spend too much time there.
All right, yeah, 12 hours, cool. Born in Houston, Texas, raised in Miami, Florida, University of Miami, graduate, big Canes fan, somebody that has been working alongside with myself for many years, and we've done some pretty cool things along the way. I wanted to jump into the first convo, something that you're getting pretty known for. You have some notoriety going on today, and this is for your edits and your direction of making popular music maybe even more danceable and likable in certain situations or rooms. So I kind of want to just take the opportunity to have you break down, you know, why do you feel your edits are catching steam, right? Like, why are people liking them? And why are people that hear it liking it as well, right? So two-sided question. The DJ likes them enough to play them, but obviously the DJs are liking them because the crowd is giving some type of reaction from them. So what's your take on your edit process? And then, you know, we'll kind of dive into what is the process of actually making one.
I think to go back to the first topic, why they work, why people like them. I think it's just because it's incorporating kind of different genres that kind of blend together and give a fresh sound to familiar songs. So being able to incorporate a brand new cool dance song, house song, but able to put familiar vocals over it, it just allows DJs to maybe play some of the music they truly want to play in rooms that maybe they can't play the original song in.
Okay.
And because you now have like a little edit of this song, you may be able to work in the original, right? So you can kind of like force feed good music in rooms where maybe you can't play a full-on original minimal tech house record, but now that it's got something familiar on top, you can kind of massage it in there, and it lends itself to the overall venue's aesthetic,
okay,
while still being cool. So I think it's sort of selfishly comes from a selfish place where it's like, I really want to play some of this stuff.
And you're not finding the opportunity to.
I can't maybe get away with taking 2-3 minutes of my set to play this record straight out. But if I can sort of sandwich it with this in the beginning, maybe play the original a little here, and then we can get out with something else, it works. And in a way, by doing that, you kind of create a sound for yourself.
For yourself, right.
And you quickly kind of find out that, man, everybody at this venue loves it that I do this, or you know, and package it that way.
I just had a thought process. I don't know. Back in the day, many years ago, wouldn't a song come out and then there were like official edits that would come out with the song almost to like promote it and whatnot? And is that not a thing anymore? And how come? Because it seems like it works.
Yeah, it used to be more like, let's say, remix packages, right? You'd have like a big song would come out, and sometimes upon release, or even like maybe a few weeks later, they drop a big remix package with all the dope DJs of different genres. You'd have like a dubstep remix, a big room house remix. Nowadays, you're not seeing that as much. I think artists are putting out like an original record.
How come though? And that's me asking like selfishly because I don't know the music world as well as I would like to.
I don't think I know exactly the reason other than it must mean there must be a bigger focus, I think, with TikTok and things like that to have the original song kind of be clipped and looped as opposed to having all these different versions.
Because even hip hop back in the day, a song would come out and then there'll be like the remix with Fat Joe on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it would be like a whole other song, but it was that song.
Yeah.
And that kind of just went away overnight. I don't know.
I think it has to do with like, there's like a big focus on driving all the attention on TikTok to a specific song, right? Like a clip, a 15-second part of a song. So they don't want to have like 3 versions of a remix or something that can kind of like muddy that up.
Okay.
So what you're seeing is occasionally like a big song will get a remix down the line from a big artist in a different genre, but you're not seeing the same amount of like 10 artists coming out with a remix of the same song.
Are the edits selfishly for you to play them, or are the edits part of an MK plan when it comes to music and everything else to it? And are you also dabbling into original style music, or what is the correlation to them in your business plan or in your music plan?
Brief answer, I think the edit process is a lot of fun, and it's creatively very fulfilling because I'm able to go in and let's say I'm having a good day, I can knock out 4 or 5 really, really sick ideas that are pretty much finished within a day or two, maybe just a day. And then I can quickly go to my set and I have like something that feels like a brand new song
to test out
and play and see live reactions to something I just made. And there's a lot of detail put into them, but it's not the same process of like cooking up an original song. So it's very creatively fulfilling to be able to like go in and instantly come out with like 5 or 6 new weapons and like they're like the biggest moments of your night. And you're like, this is amazing. You're sending them out. It's getting traction. It's on SoundCloud. It's getting hundreds of downloads. Whereas if you're working on original music, there could be weeks where nothing great is coming or nothing really is really fulfilling. So I think that's the difference where it's like.
I've heard of like with originals, it's a lot easier to like get in your head, right? So you start with a project and then by the time you're done with it, it's like it has nothing to do with why you even started it or how it started.
Right.
Do you feel like the edit process is maybe easier for artists to hone in and get the project done? Like, not that it's necessarily a quicker process, although it probably is, but does it allow like more restriction to be able to limit the artist from kind of veering off into no man's land and in some situations, right, never even finishing the project because you're just not happy with where it ended up or whatnot?
I think the biggest thing that making edits has kind of clarified for me is that when you're making an edit, you kind of know right away when you're testing it out, when you work out the idea, if you got something awesome, right? Like, this idea is good. If you have to massage something too much, you realize quickly, okay, this edit's not a good edit. This is not a good idea. When you kind of take that and look at music making, it's the same thing where it's like a lot of times artists will be in the studio and they're like, they think an okay idea will become a great idea by like massaging it and polishing it over and over and tweaking the sounds and this and that. When in reality, at the core of it, the idea itself isn't
just
great.
Wasn't it, right?
So I think I've been able to take that takeaway to like making original music and learning, okay, like when you have a good idea, don't waste time on like everything around it. Focus on that and give yourself like almost like a deadline to finish it, because at the heart of it, a good idea will translate, right?
Right, no matter
how much you tweak the snare 1 dB, 2 dBs, it's not the real reason your song isn't good, you know?
Right.
So that clarity is good to learn from editing, is that like, just go and finish something. Like you have a deadline, and if it's good, it's good, you know?
Right. I think if I'm comparing it to like an artist, right? If I was an artist with a brush and a canvas, if you gave me a cool canvas and told me make it cooler, then okay, I'm gonna, whatever, right? There's a cigar in the painting. I'm gonna put diamonds on the cigar tip so it looks like it's actually really lit. Okay, cool. That's an edit to this existing canvas. It's, I guess, creatively, it gives you, some lines to work within. But an original track would be a blank canvas, and now you have to actually make this dope idea come to life, not just this dope addition to come to life. That makes a lot of sense in my brain, at least, and that's pretty cool. Let's talk about the process. You said if I'm having a good day, what are some things you do to get yourself into the good day setting to be able to produce effectively?
Yeah, I think constantly showing up is the key, right? Like you need to constantly show up and play the game. So if
Okay.
you're constantly showing up, you're eventually going to have good days and bad days, but you're going to be able to give yourself a chance at having more good days by just constantly doing it.
Fire.
And I think there's days where you have to identify when there's like a stream of consciousness, a flow state that's
Sure.
happening where you're like, everything I'm touching is just gold.
Can't do no wrong.
You need to tap into that and create a nice streamlined life around yourself so that you can like focus when that is happening.
Okay.
A lot of times that's late at night for me, and I'll start at midnight and I'm like, oh man, I just came up with this dope idea. Let me at least get it on paper so I can revisit it in the morning and like just finish it. But then another one will come up and then another one. And I'm like, all right,
Before you know it's morning already.
I'm tapped into something. I need to just keep going while the iron is hot. And occasionally I'll stay up all night. It'll be 5 a.m. My plan was not to stay up that late.
Sure.
But something was just speaking through me. And I'm like, all right, I'll fix these I'll finish these when I can approach it with a little more
Attention to detail.
But at this moment, I need to just get everything down, and then I know the spark is there.
Not right now, coach. I'm in the fucking zone. Right?
And I think it goes back to what we were saying. Like, if the idea is not amazing, if you're not excited by the idea right away, don't spend time wasting on it because you're clearly just going through the motions. Go work on something else. Find a new idea and execute on that.
Makes total sense. What do you think is next when it comes to music and the sounds that are coming out in today's day and age? As just like a consumer, I feel like venues are becoming all a lot more dancey, and these specific sounds are almost crossing over into like what is open format or mainstream, right? Where venue owners or venue managers or anybody setting the direction of the venue saying, open format dance. And this has become like this new go-to format for venues. And it's relatively new still, right? It was either you were playing a dance set or you were playing an open format set that had all types of music with, the hopes that the people danced to it, but it wasn't, electronic dance music, right? Where today's day and age, I feel like the open format sets are all becoming a little more dance format, not open format to dance. What's your take on that? And what's the reasoning for it, do you think? Where does it come from?
I mean, we're definitely in like a boom of dance music again. Like, we kind of had a dip after the last big boom in the, the early 2010s, late 2000s. We had that huge boom. We're basically back in that again. I don't know if we're in the start, in the middle, where we are. I don't think we're anywhere near the peak, but dance music is having a huge resurgence, specifically the house sound. So it's just natural that that's spilling over to the open format game. I think there's just a huge appeal now with the dance sound where it's at. It's a matter of innovation, right? Like in the late 2010s, everything was such big room that it naturally reached a point where it just everything is always an evolution of before. So naturally, when you reach that point of big room, you're kind of like, where do we go from here? More annoying, more energetic sounds. We reached a level where like it just got too much and it got stale and
repetitive.
And the consumer was like, all right, there's nothing that I like about this inherently other than like the production around the big shows.
Right.
So I think you naturally reached a point where it's like, all right, this isn't gonna work anymore, and the bottom fell out. Now we're at a point where things are in a much inherently like groovier place. Good songs are being written, but they're also just very groovy. They're really fun. They're not aggressive. There's certainly an aggressive sound to some of the more bigger room tech house stuff, but it's still groovy at the heart of it. There's a lot of bass lines. There's a lot of fun, groovy drums, as opposed to back then it was just like a big kick on a super annoying lead sound. And like if you weren't at a festival or at a club with the production, it got old.
Sure, real fast.
So I think now that we're in this era where like there's a lot of like huge, almost pop star level DJs again, right? The John Summits, the Dom Dallas that are so big that everybody knows them. We're kind of back where we were, but in my opinion, the music for the most part is better.
It's better. It's more consumable.
Yes.
It's more enjoyable, right? I was never into house music in the early 2000s, 2010s era, but I worked at Opium Group. And naturally, Mansion and all these rooms, it was those big rooms, right? Live when it opened. It was all the, Avicii, Alesso style sound. And I think the buildups and like what is the formula of that is what became stale and almost like, how do I make it better? This is what we have to work with. It has to do this, it has to do that, and then it's got to do this, and we were kind of stuck in it. Where today, I have, some of my regular non-industry friends ask me like, what's the specific house genre right now that's like booming? And I don't know how to answer it because it's like a little bit of everything, right? The new disco's hitting, the tech house is hitting. Tech house in general, I feel like has gotten redefined, right? Like tech house before was a very like minimal, like you think of Coco Drills, like very techie sound, original Space Loft. That was like tech house to me. And now, you're playing me like a 4x4, like groovy style tech house song. You're calling it tech house, and that doesn't register in my head, right? So it makes a lot of sense that I guess there's more not more fluff in a bad way, but more to work with. It wasn't just EDM was this type of music. Now it's like dance music, and they all kind of fit in. What's next for it, in your opinion? Where does it go from here? 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, it was like the new disco kind of bubble. And it's still a thing, and it still hits, and people are definitely still incorporating it into the sets and whatnot. And I personally love the sound. But what do you feel might be like that next sound that people will gravitate to and call it, the next cool thing? What does that look like?
I mean, it's hard to tell, but I definitely think we're going to see like just a continuous kind of trajectory that's going in the direction that it's currently in, where things are getting a little more aggressive, which, as someone who's seen the last boom kind of go, it does make you a little worried because there's kind of nowhere to go other than up, right? So you kind of have to, you're already seeing a little more of an aggressive electro-y sound coming into it, which I personally love. It's super popular right now, but you're starting to wonder, where does this continuously go if the producers keep innovating on it and keep pushing the boundary? We're almost getting to a point where a lot of this stuff is sounding with different drums and bass lines, but it's starting to sound a little more like the blog house stuff in many ways. A lot of these like very like electro-y sounds are back. If you take the drums and put old drums on them, you could almost say some of this is like a Wolfgang Gartner sound. Like, I'm worried that maybe we're gonna push that a little too far. The difference is now we still have like underneath it groovy bass lines and stuff. So hopefully that maintains the status quo. I mean, you're seeing a lot of like hip hop vocals on house. That's not a new thing, but it's definitely become much more popular. That I love, but it also kind of is the same thing where it's like eventually this is gonna get to a point where it's no longer cool. So
played out.
I think we're just gonna keep a few more years of this like boom of dance music, but unfortunately it all eventually gets to a point where it gets stale and then there's a counterculture. Right now I don't think we're near that, but
what's gonna be the next? Because like where my question stems from there is like, as you said, it evolves and gets more aggressive with the first go around. And then dubstep happened, right? And like, if I asked my parents, have you ever heard of dubstep? It was just like, it was a new thing. Like it's not a genre, right? Is there a new dubstep down the line? Is there an artist that's making this type of sound that's like just straight left field, right field? It has nothing to do with aggressiveness. Obviously dubstep's very aggressive. But like trap music when it came out, right? Like, is there a redefined sound that is in the works as far as like the musician community or anything in between?
Yeah, I mean, those genres still exist in the mainstream today, just as like a bit of a subculture, counterculture to whatever the main stage sound is, right? There's still tons of bass shows and dubstep and rhythm shows.
And they're packed.
I don't want to say that this is the new thing, but you're definitely seeing a little bit of a more mainstream appeal to like drum and bass sounds, which kind of have incorporated some of that sound design, but it's with a little bit of a different instrumentation on the drums. So that's getting much more popular. I mean, even mainstream DJs are putting out drum and bass songs. That's something that, as far as I was concerned, was never going to happen, but it's definitely happening.
Is drum and bass and jungle the same thing?
It's got similar drums, slightly different. They're different genres and tempos, but maybe to a casual listener, you may hear the two and think they're similar.
Okay.
One's just a little different tempo.
Because I feel like today's drum and bass is like what artists were doing 10 years ago by incorporating like a real grimy hip hop song, mid ultra set.
Yeah.
I mean, where that became a thing for a while, and then it gravitated to almost like your whole set is hip hop, and that's how you were throwing people off. And then, I feel like that sound is it's just something different to what's being played. So if you have an hour of something that sounds something the same and you throw something in that left field, it hits, if you're in a room, especially where the energy is being transferred from one another. So, all right, I'll transition from music just because I don't know enough of it to keep up with you on that convo. Before I do, obviously, congrats on the edit success. Naturally, it was something we spoke about years ago. From then to now, not only have you put in the work to figure out what works for you, on the other side, you've seen what comes out that also works for the people you're making the edits for and the people that are listening and consuming the edits as far as the dance floor and people that are out. It makes me really happy when I see other DJs playing XYZ Emkay edit. Because I know that work that goes into it and the fact that you're not just making them for yourself, as you are, but you're also putting them out there for a reason so that other people can enjoy this. On that same topic, before I transition out of music, how do you utilize these things to make yourself sound different if everybody has them?
I mean, I think the key is right now I only send out a pack once a month. So there's definitely a good period of time where I'm playing a lot of stuff that I made, testing it out, and no one else has it. So that allows me to keep a little bit of that, like, nobody else is playing this.
Okay.
Now, naturally...
So you play it first?
Yeah, usually I'm playing it first. Occasionally I'll make something right away and it's so good that I want to send it out to people and they want it. If I posted a preview, people might hit me up for it and I send it to them immediately. Ideally, I don't want to gatekeep anything, but there is a school of thought that maybe you should, right? Because I do like the ability to, like, pull up to a venue I've never played before, play a bunch of stuff that I know they've never heard before. They may have heard parts of this song, but they've never heard it the way it's being mixed together, right? So that there is an element of, like, I like keeping the surprise. But I also like just sharing music and pushing the entire kind of game forward. So I do like sharing these things with friends. It's good to get feedback. So I think you just got to find a balance of that.
Okay.
There are so many good editors on record pools that I'm a subscriber to and friends that I have that if they all did this, all of us would have we'd all have less good music. So
to work with.
It's kind of good that we're all sharing this, but there is an element of, like, well, now everybody's sounding the same because they're all playing the same stuff, right?
Because the way I see it is, like, again, consumer ended, right? Like, if I'm in the crowd looking at the person DJing, when you play the original song, even if you've never heard of it and you look into it, the credit is there for the person that made it, right? So if Emkay played an original Emkay song that was huge, everybody would know, oh yeah, that's his song. But an edit, for the most part, just the guy playing it knows who made the edit, right?
Yeah.
So the bar manager, the nightclub VIP host, like, they hear that DJ play this crazy edit. I don't feel like the person that's making the edit is the one that's getting the credit. It's the person playing the edit, right? Even more so that, like, edits, I guess, back in the day were what you did in your sets, right? Like, your edit 10 years ago was probably something that you had to do live in your set. And then, it was like, wow, look at what that DJ just did, not what that DJ just played.
Right.
Where today it's more about what that DJ just played. So it's interesting to me as a non-DJ to say, like, how do I get known for all this work that I'm putting out, right? It's kind of like putting a canvas out without your signature and then people love the art, but they don't know who made it. It's almost like a disservice to the artist, but a service to the person using the art, if that makes sense. What's your take on that? And how does it make you feel as the artist sometimes, where I'm sure other DJs or other artists sometimes get credit for their sets based on some of the music, you and other editors out there, right?
Yeah, I think it's good to share the music because it just kind of spreads the word about you. Now, to the end consumer, like the person in the crowd, they're not going to know I made it, but I do put a lot of stuff on SoundCloud, and you'd be surprised at how big some of these things get, where you're getting hundreds of downloads and plays. And so I do like to think that, like, even recently I had someone that heard someone else play an edit reach out.
Cool.
Just a person that wanted to listen to it. I had it on SoundCloud. I sent them the SoundCloud link, and now they're playing it. There's a balance, like, obviously it's tricky because...
Stupid question. If I Shazam someone playing your edit, it doesn't come out,
No,
right?
It's not going to come out. No, because that's all copyrighted and, it's only going to find the original song, presumably. But
which is good and bad, right? You find the original, like, fuck, I really wanted that, what the guy played tonight, not this. And they got to dig a little further, and then eventually, hopefully, they do find it.
But with social media, TikTok, I put a lot of videos and stuff like that. Those can do really well. And if they blow up, then everybody knows that you made this edit. SoundCloud is really powerful. There's ways to use social media to leverage that into everyone realizing you made something dope. Now, in the end of the day, even if you go viral for stuff, it doesn't really move the needle. You got to eventually start making, like, original music or really, like, hone in on that craft of editing, which you can. But I just think it just raises the game for everybody in DJing and in music culture. So I think it's still important. I just don't think you have to do it selfishly just for your credit. Eventually word gets around, even in the DJ community, and there's something nice to be like, wow, I'm spreading this. Something that I made is spreading all across the country. And there's been times where I've been walking up to a venue I'm about to play at, and I hear someone playing something I made, and then you realize I may not have a conversation point with this random DJ, but now I do. And now there's just a little more of a respect factor when they're like, oh, wait.
You can relate to it,
You're playing something that I made, and you can connect and
say I'm not dope now.
Right.
Right. At that point, right? It's like it also that cosign.
Very cool. The way to develop connections.
So we spoke about music 10 years ago and the EDM bubble or boom, and I was part of that, and it was awesome. I want to transition now to DJs 10 years ago and DJs today. And what would you say, just to start the conversation off, would be like the major difference?
The major difference, I'd say for sure, is that 10 years ago, the DJs were the conduit of a vibe.
Okay.
Right? Whereas now the DJ is the vibe.
Okay.
So like back in the day, you could be a killer on the decks and just stand behind your laptop and crush it.
And work.
Maybe not even, a lot of DJs would just like use their peripherals to look at the crowd and they're just focused on their laptop with their decks, as opposed to now, like that's almost dead. Even if you're crushing it, that's not enough anymore. Like you need to like interact and engage with the crowd. You got to have some sort of performance element, antics, dance. You got to know the words to your songs. You got to sing. People want to see that you're having a good time and that you're more than just playing the music. No longer do people want to dance and stare at a person who's just like staring at a computer screen or a deck. Right. You got to almost do it all now. So you still got to kill it, but you got to add a little more performance antics to it.
Is that the DJ's touch on like the service of everything is based on experience, right? The consumer's experience, including the service, right? But is this like now an element of service that's being added on to the consumer where, I'll give you the example. If you walk up to the bar and the bartender has a stank face on, could be the best drink ever, but like kind of shitty service, right? Or a shitty experience. I'm picturing that with the DJ, right? Where he might be killing it and it sounds great, but every time I look, if he's not engaged, he or she is not engaged, not having fun while doing it, and your whole existence is basically to provide a good experience of fun, then it's hard to like relate, right? Or to say like, all right, yeah, he or she is the reason I'm having fun. Well, like, when they're like, it gives off like a non-fun thing, which, I mean, shit, how much stress as a DJ, you have 3 minutes to figure out what's next, and you're already 6 songs like down on what you're going to play 20 minutes from now. And like, you're playing this for this reason later. And like all these things you're thinking. And now you also have to take the time to say like, make sure to look like you're having fun while doing it. Right. How much stress does that add? And do you feel like it's an element of what the venue now expects to like provide for their guests, right? Again, like part of the experience is I don't want the DJ that kills it. I want the DJ that kills it and also gives off that oomph or wow factor to the crowd, right? Yeah. And I guess it stems from like, my first club I ever walked into, the DJ booth was like on the second floor in the corner. And it was like, I guess what today's like light booth would be considered, right? Like it was like off to like the cut, like you were not the center of attention. No one knew if they're, who was DJing. Where now every room, you're essentially at some type of focal point where everyone in the room sees you for a reason, right? So like you can't act like you're in a closet on the second floor if you're in the dead center of the room on a, 10 floor stage, right? So what's your take on that? And how can DJs maybe get better at providing that element that venues are looking for?
Yeah, one, like you said, I think it's a natural extension of the DJ being put in more prominent positions in the nightclub. So now there's a lot more focus. That naturally comes with like a performance element. Sure. 2, crowds have been a little more conditioned now through social media and things that go viral to seeing that, right? So they expect that now because that's what they're seeing constantly online. If a clip goes viral online, it's no longer a guy just standing there doing a dope mix.
Right.
It's a guy singing along with the crowd going nuts. It's everything, right? So it's just a natural extension of the DJ becoming more of a showman, more of a performer. And to touch on what you said, DJ A is killing it, but he's standing there looking at his screen. He's not engaging at all. DJ B is killing it, but he's putting on a show and he's performing and the crowd is engaged with him. He's singing. Who are you going to pick, right? I mean, as the owner, you're naturally going to want the person that's more entertaining.
Right.
And a DJ doing that is more entertaining. That does come with, yes, a level of stress on the DJ that you're adding another facet to the job that you didn't have
another responsibility,
before.
correct.
Yeah. So before you could, like you said, especially in the open format world, where you're really thinking, all right, I got to get to this genre. I've been playing this too much. I need to get to this genre.
This bottle parade's coming in 5 minutes. This, celebration.
The owner only wants a little bit of this, so I need to find my way to get to that, and blah, blah, blah. There's so much more that's like going on cerebrally inside the DJ's head than as opposed to like what most crowds are used to when they're going to see a house DJ perform at a big show, where he's kind of playing his set. Yeah, you can engage with it. It's all your music. You're having fun. There's more room to perform. I think it's a little trickier when you're like juggling all these things that an open format DJ has to juggle to do that. But the problem is you can, and people are doing it, so it's become an expectation now.
How come, and this is completely opinionated, I guess, because I'm not a DJ, so I wouldn't know, but how come open format DJs work way harder, both, I would say, probably pre-set and during the set, than like a traditional EDM DJ, yet you're way more limited on the possibility of growth? What's the reason for that, right? Because like as a talent, you would think that the person that is able to do more and able to be a little more broad with their craft, right? You would have to learn more about everything versus a lot about something.
Yeah.
Why would that be more limiting than like a John Summit that goes up there and, has his set, knows what he's going to play when he comes up, crushes it? I get the whole, like, he sells tickets and money factor, but growth wise, why do you feel open format DJs get stuck not getting to a level like that, right? AM was able to get to a level like that. Why have we not seen more of those over the years, do you feel?
I mean, like you labeled it, right? It's ticket selling, right? Which equals leverage, which equals power. That's the main reason, right? But I think too is that we've kind of entered an era where like there's not a lot of value placed on like mixing music popularly into one another and sing along like that. That's kind of seen as like corny, cheesy, whatever. Whereas the majority of a mainstream crowd wants to see an artist perform new music, cool current sounds. They almost want to be taken on a journey. They don't want to know what's being played. Now that's not always the case, but I just think that there's a level of like performance and artistry that is valued more in like a house DJ or an EDM DJ, dance DJ, as opposed to someone who's an open format DJ and is looked at as just playing other people's music.
Is that because of what you're playing or because of how you're playing it?
I think it's both. I think it's like what you're playing and how you're playing it. And some of that is also really heavily based on the venue's guidelines and rules. What does management of the venue want? Some venues, they want to be like, keep this place cool, play whatever is cool, like, right? Whereas a lot of venues are like, hey, we need to drive sales and we want to have people singing along and just give them the familiar stuff. How you do that, fine, but like make sure everyone's having a good time and they know the music. So in many ways, an open format DJ is seen kind of like they're just doing karaoke up there, right? Like They're not. Now, I think the best open format DJs are doing it at a level that is kind of doing both, which is kind of touching back on the edit thing and all that, where you're like playing cool music, but there's still some familiar vocals and you're doing it in a fresh new way. That to me is a totally different thing, right? But still mainstream crowds see it as something totally different,
I was blessed to be able to see AM at Mansion a little bit before he passed away. And it was a performance, right? Like, because it was him doing it live. You were actually, at that time, which it wasn't even the thing to do, the whole room was facing the DJ. And he was on the main stage with his turntables laid out. And, I get why this kind of died down in the DJ community because, again, it gets played out, right? You can scratch with your tongue, with your elbow, with your toes. I get it, right? But he was doing something that I feel was a performance. It was a karaoke, but in a way where like you couldn't sing along because he was doing his own thing with all these sounds, words, and essentially manipulate all of these things to make a performance or to make an original set is kind of like what I would take from it. And I clearly remember, right? Like rock song into like something, then this Biggie drop, and then like he's got like 14 things going on at the same time. And like I didn't have to be a DJ to be like, yo, that's hard. Like that's not easy to do. What he's doing right now, like I can't imagine how hard it is, but like it can't be easy. And as a party goer, you felt the energy that I felt like a festival would give you, right? That journey where shit, I've been here for 2 hours and like, where did we start and how did we get here, right? But to me, it was also like more fun because it wasn't just 5,000 people looking at a festival stage with crazy production and this and that, and like very minimal maybe engagement with your surrounding, right? You're 20 people left, right, center from you, you know, as far as a nucleus, where an open format room, I feel like you could move the room a little more, like engage, like you could dance randomly, you know, like it's more of a party setting and not a performance setting, even though you can still perform. And to me, I never really understood why there hasn't been more things that take that open format DJ and push it to a further limit that would say, yeah, I want to actually buy a ticket to see that person perform. Right? Forget the music they're playing, or like, I get it, right? You go to any type of theater or performance, like to hear that person do their song or their thing. So I get that as far as a performance, but as far as a skill set or like, I mean, at the end of the day, a guy playing really good on a guitar that sings well is still selling out theaters, right? And it's not based on the journey or this and that, it's based on his craft. So why has the craft of being a DJ diminished a little bit, right? Or the importance of the actual craft in general. We always talk about, you know, back in the day, you would have to bring all these instruments to be a good DJ, the records, things to connect, the turntables, the instrument, you know, your instruments, your tools. And now you're showing up with a USB stick and a camera. So it's like, how does the industry maybe correct this in a way where we could empower open format DJs again to actually put on a great performance and not just a great set, or like to give off good energy during the set? How can like that transfer into how you're doing it, not just what you're doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think unfortunately society in general just emphasizes personal brands and fame, let's say, or clout versus pure talent, right? So yeah, the average open format working DJ, touring DJ, whatever, really good open format DJ is probably more gifted as a DJ than many of these headlining acts. The problem is, it just comes down to they can sell out a club and most open format DJs can't. Mainly because of their brands, right? They're not famous. Why are they not famous? Well, because they're not really selling anything, right? As a DJ, an open format DJ, you don't have a lot to sell to the crowd outside of when you're playing your sets that are incorporated mainly of other people's music, right? So, you know, you can't spend all day on Spotify listening to a DJ Emkay set, right? You're going to just listen to John Summit's music or Dom Dolla's music and
searching the artist versus the
right. And you're naturally going to listen to their sets from these beautiful festivals with beautiful production. And that's because it's new, it's different, it's cutting edge, as opposed to a lot of us are playing, you know, the same classic Rihanna vocals and Drake stuff. And it's just like, it's just not as cool, you know? I don't know how to change that. I don't think there is a way to change that.
I agree with everything you just said, and I think a lot of that has to do with how it's being presented, right? Where venues and just places you go to hear music, right? It could be anywhere. Obviously, put a lot more attention, dollars, production into these big, you know, EDM style nights because they obviously have to make the return and they got to keep up with what everyone else does for those EDM style bookings and parties. Where open format, it's almost like the venues look at it as like the cheap option. Like, oh no, we're gonna sell regardless on that Friday, so we don't need a huge, you know, expensive DJ. Let's just get that open format guy, dumb down the production, and make it more stale. Ultimately, is what the end goal is. I do believe that the venues or the people booking the talent are a little bit to blame for this because, as you said, society wants the brands and the cool shit that's out there. And if the venues are treating open format nights as like not the cool shit night, well then society's gonna obviously reciprocate that and say, well, it's not the cool shit night, right? So I think venues overall, and maybe even open format DJs themselves, need to find a way to continuously raise the value of their nights so that, yeah, their music stands out, but also their performance stands out. And to tie that into the original conversation of the performance, what's your take on how having a laptop versus not having a laptop plays a part in this?
Yeah, it definitely goes back to what I said about showmanship and performance. People have been so conditioned now to see big DJ shows, anything with a big, fun, huge DJ, there's no laptop in sight. So naturally, that's something that kind of has sort of seeped into the culture of like an average club goer, that a dope DJ doesn't have a laptop. Right. If you're seeing a DJ perform a show, something cool, something new, there is no laptop. So I think that's kind of, you're starting to see that more now, where like you feel it, right? It's a natural hindrance to like engaging with the crowd when there's a screen, a 13-inch screen in between us, right? It gives off,
it's almost a barrier.
It gives off a barrier. It gives off like somebody's sitting at their desk at work. That's when you have a laptop, right? When you're out partying, nobody else has a laptop. So I think there's something there now that's really caught on lately, and you're feeling it. You know, I've recently felt it too, playing at big out of town gigs where you're like, oh wow, like if I didn't have this here, or even if it was off to the side, it'd feel different.
Sure.
So I think you're seeing, you're naturally seeing more DJs making that jump. Now, whether that's a sacrifice on performance, that's a whole nother topic, but you're getting something, a plus in something when it comes to engagement with the crowd when you remove that laptop.
And unfortunately, that plus, I think, outweighs, based on everything we've already discussed today, it outweighs the ability or what you're able to do with the laptop to make the performance better. Yeah. It almost doesn't matter anymore, right? Because you're just a karaoke style, whatever. So it's more about the crowd feeling it versus hearing it in a way that might be a little different, but it's still the Rihanna song that everybody, has come to learn. Yeah,
it's perception versus performance,
Yeah.
If they perceive you as a superstar to begin with, then it's kind of whatever. What you play is, sort of, comes second to that.
Yeah, it's weird to me, but it's very understandable, right? It's a movie that has Denzel Washington in it. You don't know if it's good or not. You're gonna go see it, right? But this other
100%.
movie comes out, it might be amazing, and you don't know, buddy, and you gotta wait for 5 people to tell you it's good before you go give it a shot.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense. What do you feel are the positives that DJs get by being part of an agency versus not being part of an agency?
I think pros, there's a lot of pros. Obviously, you have the resources of a company behind you. You have a whole team helping you grow your business, grow your brand. You have advisors, people that can advise you on how to move in the game, how to handle different situations that come up. You basically got a bunch of people on your team that are helping you scale your business, grow your business, and navigate it, and navigate the DJ game, because it's an industry where there's not a lot of resources or ways to learn other than making mistakes and kind of experiencing it. So having that advice, it's a huge benefit. You have connections through that agency, other DJs on the roster you can lean on for advice as well. Pros of not having one, you're a little more control, I guess, of your brand perception. There's no attachment to another brand. There's no attachment to the perception of something else. It's really just on you. So that could be seen as a pro. It could also be seen as a negative, depending on how you look at it.
And the type of person you are also, like how much creative freedom do you want? So, sometimes.
Right, and I think the pros and cons can kind of be weighed differently based on who you are, how you are, right? So a pro could be seen that you get to handle your relationships, let's say. That could be a pro. For someone else, that could be a negative. There's a pro in that everything is on you, right? So maybe you're not relying on someone else to help your career. You're kind of like, whatever you're getting, you got to do. There's no one else to help you, and maybe you don't allow yourself to get complacent in that regard. Again, that's just dependent on each individual's sort of tendencies, right? So maybe you're a fire starter, you're a good go-getter. Maybe you want to be on your own. Maybe you need someone to help you kick your ass a little bit. You probably want to have a team around you.
That makes a lot of sense.
So just some of the quick pros off the top of your head. I think one of the pros of having an agency is some of the more tedious work that's, accounting and collecting checks. You can have an agency help you with that. That takes a lot off your plate and frees up time for maybe more creative endeavors, right? That's a natural pro of having the sort of logistics of an agency behind you. They usually have a good system in place for all that. You don't have to waste your time doing it. They got systems ready to go, firing,
I think that's a big one because when you start off, obviously you're not working as much as you do when you have a defined career.
Yeah.
You kind of find a way to make it, make it your own. And then you find yourself working consistently every week, week in, week out, and it almost becomes this part of the job that's a burden and you hate. And then that reflects on said relationship or on said performance now that night or the next day because you had to wake up early to invoice. And now your brain is like doing 100 things during the day. And before you know it, I got to do my pre-gig ritual and, we got to get back to work. 100%. And so you're kind of wearing multiple hats within the same time frame. And as an artist, I can see how that's like a huge roadblock where like you have to stop your creative thinking and say, no, here's my administrative side of the business. Something that I notice as a booker is the actual conversation to book someone. When you reach out to an artist, you almost have to deal with that artist syndrome where at the end of the day, we're all playing some type of game, call it life, right? So you have to perceive yourself a certain way. You have to, kind of carry yourself a certain way. And not as an artist myself, but if I was thinking as if I was an artist, I could see how that might be a huge challenge when you're trying to build with someone, but now you're faced in a situation where you have to tell somebody no or yes, like contrary to what the easy answer would be, you got to give them the hard answer. And having somebody kind of have that conversation for you that knows how to have the conversation, right? Because there's also the best friend that's going to help you out and then he's going to ruin the relationship for you, right? Now the booker just doesn't answer. But if it's done in the right way, I do think it adds value to your brand and your overall, how people perceive you as a human and as an artist and kind of combined as both. And I think the industry doesn't talk enough about how you can still be in control of your relationships and have someone just handle the administrative operation side of it in a way where you do get both out of it, right? I think the perfect combination with this topic is the neighborhood friendly DJ that everybody's best friends with. But when the conversation gets to a certain point where now we're talking business, not opportunity, then now here's the business guy that handles these conversations. And not like, and I think that's also like how you do it, right? Here's my manager's email, hit him up. That comes off wrong at the end of the day, no matter who you are, unless you're John Summit, right? And it's like, you're so busy that I get it. Like you don't have time to connect us. Just give me the right person to hit up. But when that's not the case, comes off very egotistic or artistic, right? Where it's like, I don't do that for my career. Where a simple introduction email would go so much further. Hey, Tom, meet my agent, Tim. Tim, take it from here. I spoke with Tom about XYZ. I would love to do it. Let me know if we can make it happen. All right, well, now like it's almost like this welcoming, we're all on the same team trying to make this happen versus like artist in the middle, client on the right, agent on the left, fucking fight to the death, get me the most money you can, like be an asshole. And I think the industry is steering away from that. And instead of adjusting to it, it's kind of just like pushing away and neglecting from it. And DJs, I think, are missing a huge opportunity to be able to like actually get help where they need it, not where they want it. And that needed to want it, I'll transition to what, I find it to be a huge difference on building with someone, right? And let me get the wording right, because I think it matters. Difference and importance between building with somebody versus building from somebody. And I think that the DJ community has been very, very, very used to building from somebody, right? That DJ has an opportunity I want. Let me ask him to go to lunch, right? Not let me go to lunch because that DJ is somebody that I can relate to. We play in a similar, style. I care about what their feedback is on today's market. Let's just have a conversation about today's market, right? Like not even about that venue that you might have a plug at. And enough of those conversations may not be going on as much as, hey, so I see you're following so-and-so on Instagram. Can you introduce me, right? Like kind of like building from someone versus building with someone. What's your take on that? And like, do you see any examples where that differentiates a little bit and you kind of see like, well, doing it this way is definitely a lot better. You get a better relationship, a better, more natural feel with someone. You can actually build with someone. And maybe any real life examples that you've had where you've been in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely want to make sure you're not. You never want to do something just to get something out of it, right? Which kind of can sometimes be a lot of DJs' mentality, where it's like you can tell they just want to get something from you, and that's the only reason they're at all involved with you. And I think if you just be a good person and then let those relationships develop naturally, you get a lot further in life.
Sure.
So that's more like the building with someone, where it's like you build a natural relationship, and if opportunities grow out of that, that's just a natural progression of that relationship, as opposed to sometimes people will just straight up ask you for something, or you can tell that they're trying to build up to ask you for something. Maybe you're not able to give them what they want, and then they quickly just never talk to you again. You could just tell that the whole thing was transactional, and there was never any good intentions behind the creation of that relationship.
Right.
So I think that's the difference between, like, if you meet someone and you're like, we both have a good working relationship and we can build together and it's natural, then you build something together, as opposed to just trying to like build something with someone, or maybe just building something off of somebody,
right,
and just ripping and dipping, So
I take that like, why am I in this business? Because I wanted to do business with people I like doing business with, right? Like I kind of want to help my friends. I want to help my friends to help me, and I want to hang out with my friends and do this thing called business in the process. Naturally, then I look at the person and I say, well, does he have the same values as me? Like, is this somebody that I would like relate to? Like, is this somebody that I would shoot the shit with if they were not in this industry? And if the answer is yes, then, and obviously you're looking at like the right values and the right, things that make up this human, you kind of bet on the right people, right? Because if it's the right person, a hard worker, high integrity, has values that matter, he's not going to, just cut you out, he's a good person, then typically those are the people that kind of grow and get promoted over the years and get into these positions of power, because they're accountable and they're responsible and they're on point. So it's like building with people also allows you to be able to ask for the favor when the time is right down the line, right? Where I'm building from somebody for what they have today, not even taking into consideration what might this person have 5 years from now. Where if I know that you are a hard worker and you're busting your ass and this and that, not only would I probably get along with you, but 5 years from now, you probably have a lot more to offer me than you do today anyways, right? So like, how do we get this friendship going today? And not even with like the intention of benefiting in the future, but with the hopes that we both continue to grow and we can help each other out along the way, because we want to help our friends out. So it's something that I don't think enough people talk about. And it's almost like people don't realize it when everybody realizes it. When you get that, yo, brother, how you been? Hope all is well. You're killing it, bro. This and that. By the way, do you have homie's number? Maybe you could put a group chat together, speak really highly about me. And I have the 27th open in case it works. And it's like, fuck, dude, like I haven't answered yet.
Right.
That was all just the same text. Like,
right.
Like at least ask me what I'm eating for lunch. Like, I don't know, right? Like it's something that's weird. And I think everybody sees it. It's not something that like goes unnoticed. No. Yeah. It just goes unspoken of. And fuck that. We're talking here about these type of topics. That's the point of it. So staying on the same business convo, something else that doesn't get spoken about and benefits DJs tremendously is what's your take on DJs needing to set up like an LLC and approaching this as like a career and a business versus like, here, pay my government name and figure it out, right? What's the importance of it? And then what are some benefits and stuff that you yourself have seen or obviously know, years into the process?
Yeah, I think it's super important to take things seriously if you're going to make this your business, your career, to approach it in that manner. I think the moment you start doing that, you'll start to see growth in the business because you're now taking it seriously, right? If you're just doing it as a hobby and treating it as such, especially financially, it's eventually always going to be that. It's very difficult to get out of that. Right. So I think it's important to, from day one that you decide that, or once you start to see proof of concept and it's working, whatever, start to approach it that way, because you'll see benefits just out, not just financially, but you'll see like it'll spread across your entire DJ business that, I'm approaching this from a standpoint of a professional company, a professional business, as opposed to just like, I collect a check here and there.
Yeah, I play some music for fun.
I kind of write everything down on my calendar, on my piece of paper. Like, you need to start approaching it from a business standpoint like one, because the guys that I've met that really do everything on their own and they do it well, they really take that approach to it, right? They've got systems in place with their calendars, especially if you're doing it on your own. You really got to be on point, right? You got to know, okay, on Mondays I'm doing invoicing, on Tuesdays
Right.
I'm sitting down and working on edits. On Monday afternoons, I put together the weekly content calendar for the week, whatever it is. I
Right.
got my plan. Because I think a lot of DJing can come across as like casual, like they just post a flyer here when you don't realize that there's so much more
Goes
thought
into it.
that's going into that. It's not just a DJ was in line at Pura Vida and decided to post his weekly lineup. No, these things are very calculated, especially the ones that are doing it at the highest level.
Effectively. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it can have an air of casual. It can look like it's off the cuff, but I promise you it's not. I promise you there's way more thought that's going into it.
Benefit wise, just
You know.
like one off the top of your head when it comes to like taxes and things of that nature, for somebody that doesn't have an LLC and doesn't know the importance of maybe forming one.
Yeah.
Just what's like one or two real big benefits that help you by
mean,
having an LLC.
If you eventually, I guess it doesn't totally matter, but like you want to approach things seriously because eventually in life there's going to be moments where you're forced to approach it seriously. Like if you're trying to buy a house or whatever it is, you need to start showing what you're doing is real. Even if you've been making money and doing great and everything's great, there are sort of financial systems in place in this country that like
Correct.
you're going to need to approach those things seriously. And if you don't, I promise you're going to regret it when it comes to that. And especially when you start talking to more business-like people, you're going to feel like, damn, I really wasn't taking this seriously. I should have been. Now
Wasted all that time.
now I don't look like I'm taking this seriously. They don't take me seriously. So I think from that standpoint, definitely want to be on top of that. You want to be on top of it from a financial reason because there's tons of tax benefits, right? And legal benefits to approaching it from a serious manner. You want to be able to take advantage of different investment opportunities.
Yep.
You need to approach it the right way. Even a club may not take you seriously if you're just like, hey, I don't know, Venmo me, right? As opposed to having maybe an official way of payment
Yep.
structure, an official company that they can pay, things like that. Little things, but they're small things that eventually,
At the end of the day, DJs, for the most part, 99% of the time, you're not getting W-2'd. You're not an internal employee.
Right.
You're a vendor and you're getting paid, as a 1099 contractor. And when that happens, then naturally, you should be writing off expenses. You should be, doing all these things that you need to do in order to, yes, document and pay taxes, but also not overpay taxes for no reason for money that you did, have to put into your career to be able to go and work, which is the whole point of what a 1099 contractor is. And without that LLC, it's very hard to write off those expenses and get the benefits that come from it beyond obviously what you mentioned as far as the benefit of how you look, right? And how you look, feel, way different when you get a W-9 from one of the contractors and has a company name with an EIN number versus like a full government name and a social security. And you're, off rip, you already know kind of what you're dealing with
Right.
When you see that. So I have two other topics to get into. I feel like these are very important in the industry that we're in. And the first one is the definition of the title of what it is that you do here, right? As far as a DJ. And something that I've noticed over years, over time, has kind of gotten diluted, right? So when I say I'm a basketball player, it's a sport. It's this thing that I do. I play basketball. But then I can say, I play at YMCA, or I play high school ball, or I play college ball, or I play, in Japan, or I play in the NBA, and then you are an NBA basketball player. And there's these titles, right? That if I'm in a room with four ballers, one's in high school, one's in the NCAA, one's in the NBA, and I said four, so there's just a fourth guy in there. I could clearly identify the difference between them and what level they're at in their career. But then I look at the industry we're in and I say, and obviously the main distinguisher here is the term producer, but let's just get rid of that. If I look at John Summit, Emkay, insert local working DJ name here, what are you guys all? You're DJs. So then if you're all three in a room and I know nothing about DJs, I just, for the first time ever, I'm a human and I open my eyes and I'm in front of you three as the examples, I can't figure out the difference between you three. There's just this term, you're all DJs. And I don't think the industry has evolved with the times on separating what are the different types of DJs, right? So how can, as an industry, we solve this? How can, or not we solve this, but how can it be solved? What is something that we can do? Because as someone paying the bill, it becomes very hard, or it becomes a whole sell as to why DJ X needs to get paid more than DJ Y when they're both, performing the exact same service on the same day of the week, weeks apart. So why is this guy more money than this guy? When as an owner, I walk in and I hear the same Rihanna song being played, right? So it's like, how can you raise your value as a performer if you're all putting yourself in the same pool as far as like what you are, or who you are, right? What's your take on that? And is there a solution that you see fit? Is there a problem in the first place? Am I the only one that feels this way? Like, what can come from that?
I mean, I think it all comes a lot of times what the difference in sort of levels is so much more. It's about almost everything that you're doing outside of your set, right? Like it's not necessarily the difference in the set, right? Because that's, obviously you want to be better, right? If you're considered a higher up. But a lot of times it's more about what you've done outside of your DJing that is associated with the brand that elevates the entire brand, right? So maybe it's you're producing music, maybe it's you're into fashion and you're doing high-end fashion events and runways and you've attached your name to those brands. Maybe you're like part of a record pool and producing edits for them, and that's exposed you to be a bigger brand.
But that only helps people that know that.
Sure.
If I'm just getting two names on paper and it's DJ X and DJ Y, this guy might be in the fashion, this and that. If I go on his Instagram, I'd see that. But as like a title, right? A heart surgeon and a kid's doctor, they're both doctors.
Yeah.
But they have different terms.
Yeah, I'd say, I don't think there's a quick solution for that. I think it's because it's a creative industry, it's a lot less structured, and it's a lot less easy to label and identify specific differences. I'd argue it's similar to actors, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of movie actors, but there's some that have been in, the background.
Superstars, and then there's actors.
Right, and then there's, you could get into nitty gritty of analogies, but I think it's similar in that sense where it's like, oh, I'm Leonardo DiCaprio and I'm someone you've never heard of, right?
But at that point, I think you're Leonardo DiCaprio. You're not an actor. You're Leonardo DiCaprio.
Sure.
Right? If he came out with a rap song, you'd fucking hear it.
You could knock it down a little to guys you've recognized. If I showed you, you'd recognize them.
Right.
And then people you've never heard of that are on some really bad straight to streaming movie or whatever, right? It's the same thing.
To me, there's like 4 DJs, right? 4 types of DJs. Okay. And it has nothing to do with genre, music, style. It's not typically what you're playing. It's where you're at in your career that I'm most interested in, right? Because then as a booker, or as an agent, better said, I can sell this person for more money than this person because he's this DJ, not a this DJ. And the deliverables are different too, right? This guy's showing up and playing background music. He's good for a bar. He's good for a restaurant. He's good for all these type of things. And this guy comes and does X, Y, Z and makes, different type of sales. Let it be table service or this or that. So you can make more money. Therefore, you have to pay him more money to do the job because it's a harder job to do. So I've broken it down to 4 in my head as far as like terms that we use to talk, even here at the office. The first one is like, you're a brand DJ, right? You're John Summit. You're selling tickets. You're even it doesn't have to be John Summit. It could be someone that's selling, 1,000 tickets. It could be someone selling 200 tickets in a smaller room, right? But you're a brand. You're traveling for the most part. You have some type of product behind you, right? Or association, the runway DJ, the top producer, his music's the shit. The real big celebrities DJs, so association by name, by brands. And that's kind of like this brand DJ. Doesn't typically mean that they're the best DJ in the room, but they're definitely the biggest DJ. And then under that, you would have what is like a career DJ to me, right? And that's where I would put you. I'd put other, working names, but like you're traveling, you're getting paid, somewhat more than the other working DJs in those markets. You're known for maybe like how you do something or even just like being a good person. Like you're known for something and it's like you're a career DJ. Nobody's asking like, hey, I wonder if Emkay works at the bank during the week, right? Like, no, you're a DJ, right? So it's like a career DJ. So you have a brand DJ, you have your career DJ, You have your working DJ, right? This is anyone from a local bar, local restaurant, maybe dabbling into nightclubs, the opener at the nightclub, right? These type of working DJs that are still trying to work their way to being their career. And then you have like development DJs, right? You're in the development stage. You want to be a DJ. You might be able to DJ, but you're still trying to figure out how to be a working DJ. You might still have your day job. You know, you're DJing when you can on the weekends. And it kind of, but so if you have that, then you have a trajectory, right? Like now I have a career path. There's reasons why people become doctors. They know I go to school for 8 years, I graduate, I do my whatever it's called, my practice or whatever it's called when you're, you know, shadowing a doctor, you do your steps and then here's your stethoscope, you're a doctor and you know that you have the opportunity to make a lot of money in that career. Well, if DJing offered that, I feel like more credible people would become DJs and say, well, now I know how it works. I'm a good DJ. I become a working DJ. Once I'm a working DJ, these are the metrics that I need to hit. Now I'm a career DJ. I've gotten to a point where I can shed everything off and treat this legit and make it a craft, maybe add elements of music, brand recognition, things like that to it, and then work towards becoming this brand DJ. But I think because this doesn't exist, like little Timmy in his room doesn't even fucking believe that he could be John Summit, right? Like there's no path to becoming it. So like, how do I believe I can get there if to the eye, I don't know how to get there?
Right.
And that to me is very frustrating because I feel like the industry could benefit from people knowing that there's like a route to take, not just like, well, you know, if people don't like you, you're fucked. I don't care how good of a DJ you are. Like, why would I sign up for that? Right. So then it's like the DJ's losing power in the room, but they're also losing purpose. And if you lose purpose, then you lose desire. And if you lose desire, now you're just like going through the motions. And it's all a trickle effect on how everything's getting worse and worse. So like if we were to reverse this and we were able to get things better and better, then I can see how DJs make more money 2 years from now, not less money, right? Because DJs typically are making less money today than they were 5 years ago. And there's more DJs fighting for less work. And club owners aren't stupid. I'm gonna pay you less if you take less. Why not? That means my bottom line's more, right? So, and it's not messed up to them to think that way. They're in the business game, not the music game. So I think it's very interesting that it doesn't exist. And I really hope if I repeat this enough times, the industry on its own will make some type of distinguishing comments, at least to be able to distinguish the type of DJs, right? My nephew is a baseball player. He's very different than, you know, insert whoever the stud in the Major League Baseball, you know, these days are, right? So I think it's important as an industry we do that. So I want to talk about being a booker, okay? So naturally, I was an agent for many years, predominantly agent, and that transition to being like an agent for the venue, which is now kind of considered a booker. I've seen so many goods and so many bads that I can't distinguish if it's better or not. And the combo is not to distinguish if it's better or not. It's to identify some of these goods and bads. What is your take on a DJ being the booker?
I mean, I think it's obviously...
and this is a good combo because you're a DJ and I'm a booker. So I know strengths of like dealing with someone like me. Yeah. And I may not know the strengths of like, you know, dealing with somebody that has all the knowledge and info that you have.
Yeah, there's a lot of natural pros, I should say, because they obviously know the game, they know the task, they know the job at hand. They're usually typically familiar with the venue itself and maybe the entire company structure. So they're naturally going to, you know, have a bit of they're going to have a more educated ear when it comes to what a good set sounds like, what talent they like, what talent works for the venue. They know a little bit more. They can kind of see through the bullshit, let's say, right? That maybe another booker might just be enamored with. On the flip side, you could argue that it just depends on what is the end game? What is the end customer, right? So like maybe it's not good for someone to be the DJ as a booker because in the crowd, there's no DJs, right? So you may want to have sometimes the casual input. And I think you can find a good balance of that, right? Where, you know, typically the booker is getting input from the managers and things like that. So you're getting feedback of let's say a casual listener as opposed to someone who is in touch with the DJ game. So, you know, there can be pros and cons. Some cons might be that maybe that individual is looking out for their career or their friends.
I think that's a big one.
You know, that can happen. We've seen that happen. But there also can be a good side where, like, I've seen bookers who have no idea what's going on, and they're so enamored with everything that's outside of DJing that they're booking bad DJs. Whereas a DJ, if he's the booker, will know what to look for, what to hear for, and typically will book good DJs, right? So I think it's just a natural game of like figuring out that balance. Sometimes you see there is no balance, and sometimes they have a good system in place where there's a DJ who's the booker and has a good sort of creative team around them, a good management team around them that can help sort of balance the casual listener's opinion versus the attuned listener's opinion to what a booking agent should be, you know?
I agree with definitely everything you said on the two sides. I think to add to that, DJs are creatives. Naturally, creatives aren't the most organized people, typically, right? There's some examples, right? Like Contra, when he was at Blackbird, I mean, nothing was more organized and detailed, and the monthly emails, and like there was never anything misspelled, and it wasn't like an email by mistake. Like it just shows that like you read the email 4 times before you hit send, and like you cared about the organization and detail. Where typically a DJ, that's not like their focal point, right? They're more on the creative, more on the artistic, more on the in front of the camera, not show notes on how to make this dope before the camera turns on, right? Type of thing. And as a booker, I think you can be a lot more organized without the pressure of having to even figure out how you like look doing it, right? There's no eyes on me. It's more of eyes on the schedule that comes out. But once you're the DJ doing it, now there's eyes on the schedule, and then they know it's you doing it, so there's eyes on you. And I think if I were to tie that to the conversations about business as a DJ yourself, well, now you're forcing yourself to have business conversations where business isn't always good, right? You have to be the bad guy sometimes, especially if you have the place you work at best interests in mind. Your job is to save that venue money. So that means that your job is to pay DJs as little as possible, not give your friends the biggest bag, right? Or not use up the available budget just because that's the available budget. Well, if you know the DJ A is an $800 DJ and the room has $1,000 budget, then that doesn't mean pay DJ A $1,000 because that's doing a disservice to what the venue's paying for. But if there's a way to look at it where you're giving DJ A 800 and then once a month you're bringing DJ X that's $2,000 and you're using the overages from every week to bring this special guest DJ, then that could be looked at as kind of maybe like an additional value to it. And I'm not saying a DJ isn't able to do that. I'm just saying a DJ would be put in a very bad position to be forced to do that or to actually want to do that, to have the best interest of the business and the venue employing me versus the room and the homies that I'm playing with. And so to me, like, I wouldn't be able to do the job if I was a DJ, right? Like, it's the good combos are great. And when you book your buddy, it's amazing, right? And you could probably even build your own personal career by reaching out to DJs that may not know who you are and introducing and building that workflow, and then good can come out of it. But what happens if a month later you got to call that guy back and fire him and tell him he can't come back because the owner hated him? So now you're in a very uncomfortable situation where you're forced to either do your job well or to kind of tiptoe around the shit and kind of put yourself in nomad's land, which is also terrible as an artist, right? Because now people are following up with you, you feel the pressure, the stress, and you don't know what to say because you put yourself here. You know what I mean? So I think this is another topic that I've never heard discussed. And I think a lot of good comes out of it with the knowing, you know, it's like saying like your hitting coach should have like been a good hitter when he played baseball, right? Like if they've never held the bat and they just have all the science and the organization of how to hit a ball, they're probably not gonna be able to teach you or like, kind of involve you very well. But if the DJ reaches out and is like, yo, here's the format for the night, you're gonna know what the guy's saying, right? And the guy's gonna know what he's saying versus I find sometimes trouble when I have to call people like you and, hey, this is what I want. How do I describe this in words? Right. And then, here's your tempo and this is the BPM you should be in. And these are the genres that are, touched on and how much of what genre and this and that. And that's the other thing, like as a DJ, sometimes you kill creative freedom by providing that. So you don't want to do that because you don't want to be the guy telling the other guy what to play. But that's your job, because your job is to create consistency in that room that you worked for.
Right.
So it's like there's so many weird kind of gray areas that if I was a DJ, even if the money was good, I wouldn't put myself in that. It's almost like, how do you become best friends with the booker so that then all the good that comes out of it, you piggyback off the relationship, and all the bad that comes out of it, you had nothing to do with it. I'm just the resident that like helps them out. And I think there's some interesting ways to position yourself as a DJ that gets an opportunity with said venues to work with them in a light that's just not performing.
Absolutely.
That was a great convo. We had another yet very successful Rock Talk with DJ Emkay, DJ, producer, remixer, editor from Miami, Florida. Just found out it's actually Houston, Texas. And I'm glad that we were able to have some of these conversations on camera. I'm extremely happy for your time and are grateful for your time and happy from what came out of your time. And I look forward to a lot more of these. We'll plug in his socials and everything else right here. And we'll go from there. Till next time.